The prophet of the Waaagh has risen as the time of the orcs is on the rise. Today, we're going to break down the Ghaz glow up. We're going to talk about Makari and the Battlewagon, as they do have a factor into Glaz's glow up. And some people are not familiar with Makari, so he might need a little mention. We have Ghaz and the lads. So we're going to talk orc boys. We're going to talk about the actual damage numbers. I put them through the ringer for you so you guys can actually know what the numbers are on the kind of output these guys are getting now with Ghaz. Then we have Ghaz and the Nobz. So we're going to go from 5-mans to 10-mans, talk about them, and then also give a mention to the Mega Nobz. Though we are familiar with them, they came down in cost. They need to be talked about and how they actually participate now. Then we talk about some support tactics. We're going to discuss the unit combos that go with these 20-man unit of boys. So, you know, the units that are on the menu, the Big Mac, the Painboy, and then, of course, we're going to go into final thoughts, additional tactics, ideas, things that I want to mention, and, of course, interact with the chat that is here live and answer the question of, should orcs bring Ghaz? And shout out to you guys in the chat. Of course, this is live, so say what you guys got to say, and I'm ready for some pushback, and I'm also ready to get stuck in, lads. So let's start with the basics for the new gets or anybody who hasn't used Ghaz in a while or isn't familiar with what's going on with the Battlewagon. So we're just going to hit Wagon and Makari tactics real quick for you gets. So for the Battlewagon tactics, one thing I want to bring up to you guys is a new archetype that has now been brought up, the Blitz Brigade. So if you guys know Blitz Brigade, it's actually a lore thing. It includes battle wagons. In short, that's what I'm calling this archetype that we're about to go over. But Ghaz not only counts as 4 spots in the wagon, Makari himself counts as 1. That means together they are 5. And spots are going to take up in the wagon, of course. Keep that in mind. The wagon still keeps its 22 transport spot, even if it has hard case. You do lose firing deck. That's fine. You get all the other little DACA guns. And what this Blitz Brigade archetype kind of is starting to look like and unfold for some gets is you're going to get a Ghaz, you know, of course, Makari. That's going to be 5 slots. You're going to take 10 Nobz. It could be 5 Mega Nobz because they take 2 slots each. So then that brings up your count to 15. Then you ring alongside a unit of Tank Busters. It could be Breaker Boys. Then you add or could be another 5-man unit of Nobz. Then you add 1 character. So in this case, what I have on screen is Tank Busters plus a shock attack gun, for example. So if you're playing maybe a tactical brigade detachment, you have Ghaz coming out of the middle, then you have the Tank Busters jumping out also and shooting downfield. But this is called a Blitz Brigade archetype for what's going on with the wagon, and we can kind of look back into this as we get back into final thoughts. But just laying that out as that's an idea for what people are looking to bring in this. You know, a lot of the time people think that GW is pretty shooty. You might need to diminish the profile of what Ghaz is going to be, and in a good way that you can still kind of optimize his staging could be with this Blitz Brigade wagon. It could have some value depending on the detachment. Then just some real touch-up points about Makari. Makari does count as a character. He will give the assassinate points up, and then he also can be ignored if people precision Ghaz, which is going to be important when we talk about the other characters, right? So people sometimes forget that. If you haven't used them, just know people can go straight for Ghaz. Boom. And that matters. So then we have, and then he counts, like I said, as 1 spot in the transport. Now let's just go straight into the juicy bits and what everybody is here for. The Ghaz and the Nobz. Now, actually, people are probably here for boys, but I think the hardcore lads have always known that Ghaz has had his bully boys, which is an actually lore accurate term. Whenever Ghaz shows up, he shows up with a bunch of Nobz from his great Waaagh. So we're going to talk about the Nobz. Now, this is going to include the normal Nobz, but also the Mega Nobz to a certain extent we're going to talk about. But I actually just did some damage averages for you here, right? Because people a lot of the time were wondering, like, what is the point of the 10-man Nob unit? Is it even worth bringing? Well, one thing is the Nobz value is just straight up their damage, right? What they're trying to put out in straight volume to take advantage of Ghaz and the other stratagem, you know, that we're going to talk about and detachments we're going to talk about. But we're going to be doing just the math based off Unbridled Carnage right now and Warhorde, right? But you do get Warboss, so you will get the -1 to wound on your unit. That makes up for the fact that Ghaz, because of his bodyguards, he would be considered T5, and that whole unit is T5. So being -1 to wound helps Ghaz not feel as squishy. You are paying for 10 knobs. It would be 445 point cost. That's extreme. So what am I actually punching out? What can I actually do here? But let's start off with something that people probably wondered, even though it might not be the most meta, this would be a problematic unit to take out in one shot. Looking back, would be 10 knobs plus Ghaz versus a knight. It was a chaos knight with -1 damage, right? So the Knight Lancer has a 4-up invuln, and then it also has a -1 damage, which would typically be the horrible target for this unit because they're strictly all damage 2 coming from the knobs. But on average, when you pop Unbridled Carnage, so you're getting sustained 5+, critical 5+, lethal 5+, sustained 5+, like I said, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. Boom. On these knobs, 29 damage, even with the -1 damage modifier on average going into this Knight Lancer, just one-shotting it straight off the table. And that's amazing because, like I said, that typically would be the worst. Is it the most meta? No, but we're pointing out at the extreme volumes you're getting that what would be considered one of its worst nightmare things to hit, it actually ends up breaking apart nasty. So I was very excited to see that. Then we go into just some let's talk about 10-man knobs, 5-man knobs versus Land Raider. So, of course, we're going to just, everybody uses this as a baseline, right? We just want to know on average what it does, while Spectaxis does it all the time. And Land Raider with Armor of Contempt, not equivalent in point cost, but just to get its numbers down, 10 knobs on average alongside Ghaz will do 38 damage on average to a Land Raider. So you're essentially punching through one Land Raider, then punching through the next Land Raider behind it, even if it has built-in Armor of Contempt. I will say Ghaz does a lot of that damage because of what he's able to proc. But let's say you do a 5-man knob unit, still 29.8 damage we're getting here because the knobs are still pulling in some punches and volume as well. And so you can just still punch up into big enemy vehicles with Land Raider potential and still getting 29 damage off with 5 knobs. You got 10 knobs plus Ghaz into the G. What this is standing for is the Great Unclean One. So for his defensive buffs, the Great Unclean One is T12, 4-up invuln. He has 20 wounds. He has a 4-up feel no pain, and then he has access to a stratagem where he gets to re-roll save rolls of 1. So typically he's quite hard to one-shot. One of the worst things you try to one-shot in all of 40K. Typically you would ignore him, but with Ghaz, you don't want to think about what do I have to ignore. You want to think about what can stand up to me, which is absolutely nothing. On average, you're putting up 21.2 damage into a Great Unclean One at his peak potential with defensive capabilities. He's still tanking. He's just taking that straight to the face. Now, of course, it can peak because for 4 feel no pains are crazy, but the fact that you even have that potential to one-shot him is amazing. So now this goes as well. When I broke down, let's say it was, he might not be equivalent point cost, but if someone tries to slow you down with a Deathwing Knight, for example, you still punch out at least 7 of those guys. If it's Terminator and Deathwing Knights with my Armor of Contempt and -1 to wound, mind you. So even if they're stacking their defensive buffs, you're blending through infantry. If it's Wraiths, you're chewing through Wraiths. I think you kill about 8 Wraiths on average as well. So this is one of those units that will one-shot just about anything in 40K as for what you're bringing. Now, for its point cost, that's what you expect. That's what you want to do. But is it really way to go? And would you really take 5 knobs? That's what we're going to have to look into, but I wanted to pull up the info for what this was. Not the most popular. I did put a poll out in the Discord as for all of these units, and the knob brick did come up in, I think, 3rd place as the most popular unit that people wanted to see and possibly use. So it did want to be talked about. And so this was the 3rd most popular unit that people were considering taking with it. I think it's quite very, very expensive, but I love the fact that you can stage up in the mid-table inside of a wagon, disembark with this unit, and crump just absolutely anything in the game. That really has a real stage presence in the mid-table that the enemy cannot try to stat check. Which is what orcs really love. We really love to control that mid-table presence and use our other assets to kind of play the edges and, finagle the enemy into getting its back broken with one great wall. Of course, the Mandos kind of help set that up as well. Now, let's move on to another unit. Now, even though I do like this, right? It does lack the fact that it's it's a one-turn nuclear warhead, essentially. Which is not typically how orcs like to play. But I did want to bring it up in factor for those kids who were wondering and focused. And of course, I do think that Blitz Brigade archetype can become quite important. So Ghaz and the Nobz are part of that Blitz Brigade, and this is the stats and the facts that they have to bring to the table in Unbridled Carnage Warhorde. But what about Ghaz and the lads? So this one was fun to actually go over on the damage and to bring things up and to really look over and say, what can I actually destroy with these units with unlimited volume of bunches? And you know how I found this out? Was with today's sponsor, Adept Roll. So whenever I needed to go through the stats and the facts, I pulled up Adept Roll. I pull up an enemy defender, an enemy attacker, throw the modifiers on it, save it, so I never have to put on the numbers in again and constantly run the numbers. It'll give you 3,000, 30,000 actual results in about 5 to 10 seconds. You can run the numbers, know the charts, know why it happened, the likelihood of it happening again, and then it'll actually give you a battle summary, which will tell you in simple terms, in a very direct way, what happened with these numbers, what results you can rely on, and the way it's going to roll. So make sure you check out today's sponsor, Adept Roll. And let's talk about Ghaz and the lads, which I've been excited for. Again, we're going to use some of the similar units that we just used for the Nobz, and then some with more numbers. And mention that I'm using Warhorde in quotations here, but with how Ghaz works and the fact that you can actually stick different characters like a Big Mac to get access to the button on here, or you could play something like Tactical Brigade and get access to sustain. It means that these numbers, even though they're mentioned as Warhorde, but Ghaz still innately gives you critical 5+, it means that you can still get these same results, other than with Dreadmob, Tactical Brigade, or Warhorde, because they all have access to sustain and lethal happening at the same time, and that's how I rolled these numbers out. So this was just the Ghaz and the lads, no character support mounted to them. Of course, I did have the knob in the unit. But let's look at it again. So we pulled up the same Knight Lancer, of course, -1 damage. Won't really matter that much. Typically, the most popular version of this Knight not going to have Armor of Contempt, but still, nonetheless, 40 damage on average from the lads and Ghaz, just blending that guy to straight pieces, almost being able to shoot 2 of them at the same time, and then you lure them, like Chad's saying. I like that. We also have the 20 boys, right? Ghaz versus the Great Unclean One. Again, T12, 4 up invuln, 4 up feel no pain, 20 wounds, rerolling saving throws of 1. One of the hardest units to crump in all of 40k. I was interested, but still, average 20.8 damage on that unit. Now, not reliable to just simply go out this guy at full potential, but I mean, there's plenty of ways you can either chip him down, he could take damage other ways, from bomb squigs, grenades, lethal shots from flash hits. Sometimes people just should get he just gets chipped down in other ways throughout the game. The enemy will just have that way of just kind of presenting something big and thick to you. Absolutely doesn't matter. He's still getting picked up and blended. Not super reliable, because that's the average, right? And a lot of the time we like to go a little beyond the average to get this done. But something that is reliably getting scooped up off the table as well, which is notoriously known for being annoying on the table, would be 20 boys, Ghaz versus the Wraiths and their 5 up feel no pain. Everybody knows that Necrons are one of those armies that love to stat check you. They say that's T6, 4 wounds a pop. The 5 up feel no pain really messes up their damage 2 that goes through. And then begin before wounds means that 3 damage doesn't cut through them nicely either, necessarily. So they're one of the tougher units to punch in 40k. And if you don't absolutely one-shot them, they regen the whole unit and then they scoop you up. So in this kind of way where people are going to bring duplicates of these Wraith bricks, it's really nice that you're going to be able to absolutely one-shot one of them, and when the second one jumps in to come get you, you can possibly be popping defensive strats, or have already gotten into combat with the other unit and hold it in place, so the enemy won't even have the assets to even dig this 20-man unit out after it's broken the back or really destroyed any of these units you're seeing on this list, which is amazing. That's really one from your Warhorde. And like I said, these numbers where you have access to sustain, you can crack all these numbers off by getting critical 5+ from Ghaz. So thank Ghaz and Makari for that combination. So it's absolutely love to see it. But on average, you get 10 dead models in Warhorde. It was about 39 points of damage that went through, and then on average. And then for Tactical Brigade, because you get access to another +1 strength from the orders, you could end up giving +2 strength, so you can get the boys up to strength 6, and their T7 6 as well, so you can wound them better off on that wounding on 3s, thanks to Ghaz. But just wanted to throw them into the equation for pretty much durable infantry that could be out there that I could not be accounting for. Even those guys getting blended through, straight picking them up. If it's flesh hounds, I think those are those big guys, those demons are called. But there's, you know, a bunch of weird units in 40K. Nonetheless, the numbers are showing us that absolutely nothing can stand up to this many punches, this many hits, this many attacks from these lads. And then again, I just wanted to pull up another unit that you know isn't going to be point cost equivalent, but for board control presence, winning the game, playing the primary, you might have to dig out something like a Deathwing Knight unit. This could also just be a big brick of 10 Terminators. We'll say what are they called? The Space Wolf Terminators, -1 the wound. They don't have average -1 damage, so that means you can almost double this number into them. Not necessarily. I think you got up to like 9 on average, but nonetheless, you kill about 6 Deathwing Knights, even if they're -1 the wound, and they have Armor of Contempt, just from straight volume of punches from the lads, just making them take that many ones. Ghaz, the boys, everything, he's just blowing them up. And then I just threw it down in the bottom because it was funny. Be'lakor, you know, a greater demon, 50 damage, unnecessary, just had to put it out there because it's hilarious to see. Now, how do I actually feel about Ghaz and the lads? I think this is going to be the most prevalent way we're going to see this Ghaz being used now in 40K, because it allows you to completely dislodge something from the mid-table, impose your will on the enemy, and then also get the return of scoring. You're actually playing in the mid-table where a lot of the secondaries are going. You're actually going to be able to block off enemies from getting to the next line of army units you need, possibly, that are going to be scoring those secondaries or holding those primaries for you. Going to take a lot of the tension from the enemy, and it's going to be hard for them to interact with if you do the combinations right. As we continue to go through this video and look at the character support and the detachments that we would start to roll onto these units and how Ghaz would actually get into play. But you know, I think the 20 boys, you know, WTC might be something else. I think UKTC, from what I remember, I have seen in a good amount of their deployments, they have like big L shapes in the middle as well. Stage up a big mob right up in there. You can stage up on WTC with a lot of the runes as well. And then on GW, maybe layout 1, for example, could be very interesting as well, where it's just like, well, I move 1 and then boom, I have full access to the mid-table with the boys. So it does the dual purpose of, well, it has multi-purpose, really. The boys are not just about their killing power, unlike the knobs. The boys have the ability to, 1, you're pushing the enemy completely back, possibly in their own deployment zone. 2, you are also still blending the enemy off the table. 3, you're possibly sticking or touching multiple objectives, denying multiple primaries for the units that you didn't make combat with, but still consolidated, piled it into. And then just the ablative wounds and the durability of this unit means the enemy has to choose through this unit, has to give it its full undivided attention, and not let us do a thing again, or even stay where it needs to, where it exists now. So let's talk about more of the support units, some of the combos, and maybe some of the archetypes that we're going to see on this. You know, because this is early, so we're gonna actually see how the meta and the orcs play out. But the Ghaz and the lads for 405 points, I think, are going to be on absolutely the majority of the orc list we see going forward, at least just to try it out. And I think this is going to be common for people to do, just to try out and have a good time with. So let's look at some support tactics already, right? We have Ghaz plus the Painboy tactics. So here we're going to talk about the detachments that I think these units are going to be about, some of the enhancements they could go with, some of the detachment buffs or stratagem buffs that I think make them more interesting in these detachments. And my argument, right, because right now I'm playing the devil's avocado, right? I'm trying to play right in the middle where I'm trying to just give the information and then at the end I'll give my opinion. But if I have to make an argument for the Painboy, what does the Painboy bring? What the Painboy brings is defense from precision. That's the first thing I thought of when I think about him. If the boys are all going to be T5 and you have this very expensive unit, there are units in 40 characters in 40k that are going to want be up to the challenge to precision Ghaz out, bypass Makari, go straight for Ghaz. You know, one of the benefits when he was with Mega Nobz, other than the size of the unit's profile, to make it smaller to fit in a wagon or to be just a two-man bodyguard unit to take advantage of Makari's aura. In this case, they also gave a 5-up feel no pain, so the enemy couldn't just absolutely kill them at will either. In this case, you know, if he doesn't have a Painboy into consideration, he is up to freaking precisioned out, and he's very, very big. So the enemy's always going to at least have that option to look at him. He does have 10 wounds. He does have a 4-up invuln, but remember, he's running at T5 while he's in this unit. So that's definitely something I see. Now he does regen boys, just regen some bodyguards. That's actually obviously a ability he has there. 3 attacks. He has the power claw, obviously, that he gets from that, and then he has their Easter Revenge, where he can try to precision and do mortal wounds on people. Now, how does this actually look in the detachments? So when in Warhorde, we have the combos of we're going to put follow me lads or brutal cunning, right? Some people might think that speed is redundant. Maybe I want the ability to fall back because I think I'm going to be able to either take the damage that's going to come at me, or by putting brutal but cunning on this unit, it means the enemy absolutely has to deal with it now, right, guys? That's something that people don't. It does take another extra step, and a lot of the time you're just going to break their back already from hitting them with this unit. But in the situation that, you know, there's still more to get done, and you're just going into one of those armies that doesn't have the volume, maybe like a Knights unit army that might not actually have all the volume to take you out and maybe able to focus you down. Well, then maybe brutal but cunning in your meta might be better, where you can just fall back with this unit and then charge into something else with Ghaz, the Painboy, the Knob, whatever he regen from boys left over, and you try to do it all over again. You've seen the damage is astronomical, unnecessary numbers that we see here. So even a diminished unit with just a couple boys that got regen, the Knobs and the power claws from the Painboy, you can end up just running around with brutal but cunning. Then you have the stratagem. So of course we have hard as nails, but we're looking at the defensive aspect of this. You have hard as nails, so now you're making this unit -1 to wound. Again, make Ghaz a little bit harder to kill and precision out of the unit. You have for a fight on death, so that now you paid for the Painboy. You actually get value from the fact that less of them are going to be dead when the enemy comes in to clean the unit out in combat. But then we move on to some of the other things that have been contended. We have the Green Tide. You have long-term invuln saves, right? You're not worried about the wall all the time just to have the invuln save. That's pretty beneficial. But in reality, the big factor here is the regen. You're going to be regenning strats so that you can actually use the detachment buffs and the detachment strats at their optimum efficiency, because a lot of them have the criteria that you have to be above 10 models. So that's the value from taking Ghaz with that. But then also, obviously, the damage Ghaz brings to that detachment. Do I think the Green Tide needs Ghaz? That's something that I can't argue right now, and I'm not sure of, but I still wanted to bring up in the conversation for my Green Tide gets, because I love them. Then we go to Tactical Brigade, which I think is possibly the second best attachment for this combo, right? Warhorde is most likely the more obvious ones, but you know, there's an argument to say Tactical Brigade is either second or maybe even first best attachment for this. Now, as for the enhancements you could take, it's more cunning, right? You know, you're playing a 20-man unit. You're not necessarily going to be in a wagon. You're going to be in the middle of the table somewhere staged up. You could end up just redeploying to be more aggressive. You're going to have a lot of Mandos. The Mandos are going to be break apart into a lot of small units. So you might have some value in that. Of course, you have the ability from Ghaz to get orders, so then you can order your own unit to have stealth, because Ghaz does not have the Mega Nob keyword. So in that case, he can still end up getting that. Now you have the strat, so you can actually fall back and charge. Again, that means the unit, the target priority of this mob becomes #1. on the one turn that the enemy might say, hey, I'll run away from you and just fight everything else, and then like you run out of time to advance and charge, then I'll come get you later. No. When you can actually fall back and charge, it means that you're telling the enemy, I'm going to come get you, and if you don't dislodge me on the turn that I'm most durable, you're going to have a problem next turn. Or I'm going to take your primary, because again, these guys are going to be 2 OC, and then in this detachment, you have access to +1 OC. So if you have the Painboy staying alive, and then their stealth, and then they can fall, you're just now you're not just breaking someone's back with killing, but instead of them just being able to focus down all of your other tactical brigade assets, they're gonna like, man, I have to kill this unit right here that's in my face right now, which is arguably the problem with tactical brigade, that people can just choose to fight your stuff that pops out on the go turn, your tank busters, your snaggle boys, right? They might just go for them as the soft targets. Being in this detachment might be the fact that no, you have to fight me now, and then I'm gonna come get you. So that's interesting part of tactical brigade in this, in my opinion. And then we have the bully boys. So the bully boys, in my opinion, is the Painboy. Very obvious. And of course, it brings OC. You get 2 turns of invuln. What I mean by Painboy is people will bring a Ghaz and a Painboy, and maybe another 20-man unit of boys, or a Nazad or Mega Nobz with invulns and feel no pains, or Squigs and feel no pains. Nonetheless, you're just saturating the table with feel no pains and toughness. And instead of making the Ghaz in a just killy, I stand here slow unit, you might make him into I have a lot of OC in this detachment, so you have to come fight me in the mid table. And bully boys, which can help them win the game, swing the primary score now the challengers or cards are gone, and have more of long-term worth in actually playing with this. Now, as for the cost, this is 485 points for this package before I even buy enhancements. The Painboy himself is only 3 wounds. He is soft as baby doo-doo, and he's a lot of points. But I do think this is going to have some play and need to be fiddled with a bit. And I'll talk more about what I think are the most competitive versions of all these combos and where this one lies. But that's what I have to say about the Painboy tactics for now. If I missed anything, be sure to leave them in the comments to let me know. I do think this has validity, and like I said, we're still going to summarize this in final thoughts. But next, we're going to move on to another support unit. The next one on the menu, the people are asking for, the one who's been risen to the top and glorified, is the Big Mac. So Ghaz and the Big Mac tactics. Now it's time to talk about what people are arguing to be the strongest combo with this new Ghaz release. But what does the Big Mac bring? Well, he brings a big price tag also of 475 points with no enhancements for this unit, but he gives a bit more passive buffs. So he gives reroll advances. He can move through enemy models in the movement phase, and when he falls back, he himself is a little tougher as well. Didn't put it on here, but he has a 3-up armor save. He has 6 wounds. So he's tougher than a Painboy, twice as tough. And then besides the Feel No Pain, I guess, Feel No Pain gives a Painboy like 1 more wound, mathematically speaking. But nonetheless, he also has access to his driller. So he has 2 attacks on the driller that are going to be 3 damage. Of course, going to stack alongside the other unnecessary damage we talked about earlier. But as the unit diminishes, you might appreciate that he does a little bit more damage, and he has damage 3. Or he can get 3 power claw attacks as well, just like everybody else. And then he auto passes Desperate Escape tests. So he can end up moving 2 through enemy models. And like I said, if you're putting combo enhancements to, like we're gonna talk about Warhorde, for brutal but cunning, where the enemy has to get rid of him or he's gonna fall back and do his thing, well, now you've made this unit very important and the enemy has to target it. I know people are thinking, well, wall tactics, aren't they always gonna have to just target it right away? There are cases in games and speeds and matchups where people will try to tar pit you on your wall turn with this big Ghaz combo, and then they're going to move away out of threat range of it and it's just making a normal move to get back into combat with them after it stays in combat with something. If it charged you with the multiple tar pity units, and maybe they made heroic interventions, or you got consolidated into something that got touch an objective, you might be able to get them next turn. They might just pre-measure you, stay outside of the wall range, and then come get you once you've lost your invuln. So the fact that you can actually fall back and do stuff after the enemy maybe throws a big screen in front of you and you blend it, but now you're just in the open, and they're like, well, I'm not going to kill you then at this case right now. And, you know, to only touch the objective, you have to consolidate this vehicle. Oh, I consolidated this vehicle. You know, I'm stuck here. And then the next turn, maybe I might not, you know, because you remember the thing you have to remember about these units as well, which is more of a tip thing, but I'm moving ahead to it because I'm bringing up the point of if it falls back and if it has value at all. People that aren't used to playing with mobs will kind of tend to forget that if the enemy tags the part of your mob that doesn't have the characters or the power clause, there is a chance that tougher units, you know, that have feel no pains or 2-up armor saves or vehicles, pop armor contempt, can end up withstanding the barrage of punches from your boys and then hold that unit in place. So that's more of a higher end tactic than happen to you, but that's the only value you see here. And I don't think, you know, falling back and doing stuff is going to be like the meta thing. So I'm just bringing it up as an idea of another layer of tactics. In reality, you're going to see a lot of follow me, lads. And that's why I think it's going to actually come from the strength of this git. Now, it's a minimum movement of 11. Allow me to explain for the new gits. So we'll just go off the boys movement. Mind you, Ghaz still going to move 5. So he's a little slow, but the boys are moving this way. So the boys, I went off the boys map. So the boys are going to minimum, they're going to move 6 base. They're going to use follow me, lads enhancement for +2. So they're going to move 8. Then they're going to here we go at the start of the command phase. Or the movement phase. Command phase. I have to remember it. I always reread it before I use it. Then we get +2 to the advance. So on minimum, I'm moving 11. But because the gate gives you reroll advances, we can just bump that up to on average a 4 that you're going to roll on that advance. So it's going to move at least on average, 14 inches. And then you're going to have 2d6 plus 2 to that charge. So that means if someone's within 6 of you, you're going to get +2 to that, which means you're going to have an extremely reliable 4-inch charge at a 20-inch range. That's ridiculous. You're going to take this 20-man mob, hoof them straight up the field, run through a screen, reroll the advance to move through the screen, stop what you're doing, look for something within 6, roll a 4-inch charge, get stuck in, crump them off the field. That's what I think is going to be very, very common and popular, at least in the first testing initial runs, to see if it's worth it. Now, remember, you are popping Here We Go for 1 CP, so it's taking all of that combo. Remember, so follow me, lads, for +2 movement. Then you get Here We Go, which is +2 advance, and then +2 to charge on that. So very, very long threat range, very, very fast unit, and hard to deal with when the enemy can screen it. Now, people will say, well, the enemy can pre-measure and move you further back. The issue is if you're giving that much ground to the orcs, then I might already be, across the midline table, which is where we want to be, and stuffing you into your own deployment zone. And in that case, you can still end up winning the game. Now the challenges or cards are gone. So I see a lot of importance, value, competitiveness behind this combination specifically currently, but it is a very expensive package going forward because that would round it out to exactly 500 points for Follow Me, lads. So then we move to another fun kind of tech piece is Dread Mob, because he gives access to the button. Now, like I mentioned earlier, because the button gives sustain, you'll press sustain button forcibly, which will give yourself hazardous, but hey, that's the fun part. Ghaz will give you 5+, and then Makari will give you lethal. So then you have this 20-man mob, which will have access to critical 5+ lethal. Amazing, something that Dread Mob is not familiar with, doesn't usually have, plays a mid-table instead while you have all the DACA support behind it. So this could be your only quote-unquote melee unit just to play the mid-table and then give a bunch of DACA support with the rest of the 1,500. Well, I guess it's not 1,500 points. It's less than that. But 475 points for this unit. Now, if you want a little bit more durability on this, you could just throw on, if you have points left over, throw on a stealth enhancement on that. I think it's 15 points. Yeah, it's 15 points for that enhancement. So then you can give it just a little bit more durability in that case as well. Could help just give a different archetype or build style to your Dread Mob, or fill up some of those points if you don't have all of the walkers or guns or DACA, whatever it may be. Then we go into Tactical Brigade, where they have Mork's Cunning. So in this case, again, you could actually just redeploy stratagem to the enhancement. Sorry, I'm saying all the words. Enhancement to this git, so then you can redeploy this guy. You do have access to an additional tactic or quote unquote order right? Because the mechs in that detachment can give orders. Now, that doesn't mean both of them can give orders to your one boy unit, but it does mean that if you have another kind of support, maybe a Zod unit you want to throw an order to nearby that may be fast, or some Storm Boys, or some, whatever it may be nearby, he can throw orders, and then Ghaz can throw orders on someone else. So you did additional orders for having the big mech in that unit. Again, fall back in charge from the detachment itself and all the OC bombing. Plus, you can give yourself stealth on this unit as well. Access to sustain in this detachment if you're running it to give him a little bit more toughness, fighting potential, but doesn't have the speed validity like we said. And Warhorde, these are just some other detachments where I think he has some validity. But then he's fighting for, the Painboy in this detachment, right? So it's just something to bring up if you want in that case. Now, now that we've covered the support units, we've covered the wagon, we've covered the damage output, we've covered the combos, we've covered some detachments. What else is there to cover? Well, I have my final thoughts. So I have some other tactics, some odd tactics that I might have not mentioned earlier in the video, or other stuff I want to bring up. And then some of the most competitive kind of build combo that I think are going to come forward that people are going to try, that we're going to see results for here and there. Don't know which one's going to move to the top, but I do think these are going to be the ones that are going to be getting tried out with the most. But let's start with the other odd tactics that I wanted to mention. So the Weird Boy. I think the Weird Boy totally can be a fun way to go. But if you're paying for this big, expensive unit, you can't really just hope on a dream that you don't roll a 1 and then just blow yourself up, right? So even though there is something fun there, and I think people should do it if they want to have a good beer and pretzel game, go ahead, fun tactic. Here we go with that. Get stuck in, run down the field, do your thing. Not going to be upset about it. Shoot, you can do it in tactical brigade if you want, and then have Ghaz give your own unit +1 to hit, and then have your Weird Boy try to precision out another unit with his brain head. I don't care. I'm just saying it's another tactic, just a weird, odd one. Then something that might be contentious is the Warboss. Now, based off wording, rules is written, does very much seem like that you could take another Warboss alongside Ghaz. It's not excluding it like you would see in the Space Marine Captain, for example, where it tells you can't take another captain with this. Why would you do this? It could be that you're just really frustrated with your friend's Death Guard matchup. And you just decide, I'm going to just ignore your modifier and just blend through the middle of your army. And if you destroy a bunch of my unit, if it's just Ghaz, the Knob, and the Warboss left, we're still crumping most of your army anyways. It could be that way. You could be a funny get, a Bully Boys type style person. Don't think it's necessarily going to be played, but something just to throw it out there for fun. Now, the intentionally using a reduced size mob. Now, people don't know this, and it's not too common, but you can look it up. You can take intentionally weakened and diminished unit. So there is an argument to said to that you take a reduced size boy unit. So you could say I take maybe a 17 or a 16 size boy unit only. I am still paying for the 20. You still pay for the 20. You just don't get to field it at a full capacity. Essentially, they just auto die from deploying, and you can stick them into a wagon anyways. So is it going to be that someone's just going to be outside of the ball and say, well, I'll put a Painboy on the wagon in there, I'll let the guys be dead, and they'll start the game like that, and then I'll just jump out, and we'll just start getting stuck in like that from the safety of a wagon. But then, like I said already, this is already 400-point combos we're looking at, right? So I don't know if people are really going to be looking for the Ghaz / Boy Mob intentional size reduction combo, but hey, it's a rule to bring out there for you gets. Then we do have the dual wagons. I think that can be another interesting tactic where people just bring multiple wagons, maybe even hunter rigs, fill them up, have Ghaz, or you just saturate the field with a Zod combo where maybe you don't want to pay for another unit of boys, don't want to pay for another wagon, but you want the saturation of OC, speed, jailing people, holding them in their deployment zone with a lot of bodies and beating them up. Have Ghaz going to their hard targets, have Zod going to their soft targets, have everybody else going to everybody else, and then just win the points by just breaking across that midline and never letting the enemy play the mid table. So there could be a Ghaz /Zod, just tar pit people with 2 OC of gets that can move and threaten you 20-inch range. It could be quite outrageous things we're predicting out here. Ghaz moving like orcs moving like world eaters, but with 20-man mobs all up the field with the punching potential of Ghaz. So very fun to see that. Now let's just real quick talk about the most competitive builds. Most competitive builds is Ghaz in my opinion, plus the Big Mac, right? We're talking about follow me lads, all that stuff like that. I think that's going to be the most prevalent, most brought forward, and intentionally used going forward. So I think right now, currently, it's setting number one, but it has to actually be played out. Other good honorable mentions that I think are going to be tested are going to be Ghaz and the Painboy and the Tactical Brigade. Like I said, still playing the mid table while all your guns do everything else. Pick up the big problematic units at range, punch out whoever was trying to stat check you close up, and then just hold down the ground and actually win the game through tactics and killing combination, just like Ghaz and the 20 boys are trying to do already. It's a combo package of I'm killing you and I'm playing the primary mission and playing the way orcs want to play, which is board control. Could be people moving into the Ghaz plus Painboy and Bully Boys. Could be some Pain Walls that make some breakthroughs in certain metas or certain, like I said, WTC, where they have dense tables and the Bully Wall can just run into you 2 times in a row. You know, we wall turn 2 and we get stuck in. We have 16 Mega Nobz with we have 18 Mega Nobz alongside us, whatever it may be, 15 Mega Nobz, and we still stuffed you in the deployment zone again. I see a lot of pressure builds or just holding people back and putting the primary going on with these 20-man mobs, but could be a chance that people are going Ghaz, Nobz, and Mega Nobz in a wagon. Could be that people bring a Breaker Boy unit here and there because they just need to auto-delete something, but they want a smaller package so they can fit more stuff in a wagon. Now, the thing about a Breaker Boy is that, one, it's like the least value for the Ghaz buffs you're getting, because Breaker Boys are already anti-4+. So really, you're just hoping to use that on enemy infantry, I guess, and your you know, low volume of punches in that case. So you're doing it more for its size. But there's something that could be said that some guys might try to do that. So Ghaz plus Nobz or Mega Nobz going into a wagon could be very interesting. Then we go into Ghaz and just 20 boys with no support characters. So as people play through, and especially if you looked at the map that we already seen, you know, you can already just punch out just about any problematic tough enemy unit or infantry in the mid table without the character support, right? And when we went over the stats and the facts for the lads and the Ghaz, none of those included the support characters, and that was intentional. It could be that people just decide, I don't want to even pay for another character, and I'm just going to bring more stuff. Could be that people just develop that and they decide, instead of paying the 80 points for the Pain Boys, I'm going to pay for a Zod, or I'm going to pay for the 80, or I'm going to pay for the 22 Grots, right? So we'll find out if that's another way to play, but I do think it's interesting. So with that being said, should orcs take Ghaz? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. Whoa, right? We're getting close to the end of the edition. It could be that GW is trying to test this for the future. I'd like to see Ghaz as an alone op in next edition. GW, please do that. But, you know, it right now is a new way to play. Let's get stuck in and have fun. It's very thematic, feels very orky. Ghaz leading a mobs of boys, as you would see all over the lore, all over the older editions, all over the artwork. So orcs have a great time. You know, if you're having a hard time delivering Ghaz, look at some other tactic videos that we've said, but it, you know, nonetheless, it's going to feel great that you have a super nuclear bomb that no one can stand up to in all of 40K. What can orcs do now that they actually have damage? Can they find a way to break the back of their opponents, but still win the game by points, attrition, and board control? Because ultimately, armies still hit harder than us. Enemies are going to still be able to blend through us outside of our wall, but will orcs still play to their strength and all the other support that goes around Ghaz to play over that mid-table line, to hold enemies back, stole all their secondaries, control the primary, and then win by delaying the game long enough to win by what we actually win by, which is attrition, board control, and scoring? Because orcs are actually a scoring army, a die for your points army, not a I just essentially table you all the time army. So to see how people blend the support into this will be interesting. But I do think people need to take Ghaz. So with that being said, what should we cover next in these style videos? If you liked the stats and the facts, if you liked the additional info, that was all good. Definitely be loud and proud. Let me know. That way I actually do it, because it did take more information. It did take more time to get these videos done, and I'm not literally math hammer kind of guy all the time, but I was trying to incorporate it because people definitely want to know and definitely want to see. So thank you for all the support, and let's take a shout out and take a look at some of the live chats, because you guys have been chatting. Looks like everybody's pretty stuck in, and everybody is excited and saying along the same things that we're talking about in the video. So good to see that the community is on the same page. Boss, you think it's worth buying a Painboy? If you mean buying like financially with your own money, you choose. If you actually like how he looks, you want that kind of model, yes, you know, then of course. But if you mean paying like for your list, like I gave the reasons for here, he's a bit expensive. So he needs to be taken with context with everything else on your list, the archetypes, the detachment. As for just buying him as a model, I do like him, but he's a little very static and seems a little bit old. So maybe wait next edition or kit bash him. There's other interesting versions of him as well that you can find, I think. So, but buying the GW, we're not really sure on that. But I do think he's a good, just having one in your army is a good thing to do. But thank you for the 3-month super chat, Flynn. You're always very active, always around. Then we got Dog Pound General. We became a YouTube member. Whoa! And actually, if you know, if these videos are the kind that I kind of want to bring to the memberships, you know, the doing the stats and the facts, putting more math hammer on there, talking about more individual units more thoroughly could be something we see in the channel members, I think, going forward. So glad that you joined. Let me know if you want to see that going forward. And then we got my boy Blake Cottrell. Nice to see you, Blake. What's up? Yeah. Whoa, I know you out there crumping. He says, do you think the slight durability with the Painboy is enough durability in the current meta? Not necessarily on its own. I think when you put it into like a bully boy style, where you bring a bunch of mega knobs and support, and then you stuff them in people's face, maybe even bring, like I said, a Zod, and you can at that point when you're across the mid table, it's not that they can't table you; it's that they're not going to table you fast enough. And as long as you have good target priority, you should cripple them enough that they can actually make full contact with your most durable units. Or that they have to when you're most durable and then just roll the dice out. As for the meta being, you know, killy, it is, but I'm not necessarily sure if it's killy for mobs and hordes all the time necessarily, right? People tend to go for low volume and high, you know, high damage due to what's going on in the meta from hull damage, vehicles, death guard, whatever it may be. So having just a lot of ablative wounds, and then the Painboy being able to bring a couple guys back or just survive the not make people not precision gas could be also an important thing there. But remember, speed kills. So even though I think it's going to have some efficacy and work better in some metas than others, and some detachments more than others, I still think speed kills and Warhorde and the Big Mech are what people are going to lean into first. But thank you for the super chat. You get very nice to see you. I know you out here crumping, and also the channel members that are chatting right now. Whoa, to the channel. We got Arcane. What's up? Get. He goes, I'd love to hear some updated stats using Slingshot with Ghaz plus Boy Bricks plus Mech plus Cunning. But brutal. Okay, so he wanted to hear like how I could swing those guys all the way up the field. That's a good video idea. So thank you for that. He gave us a super chat to give a video idea and be supportive. So very awesome by the channel member, channel supporter, Arcane Asylum. As always, much love to you. Get so I have to think about that one as well for the channel video. How to actually maximize right the Big Mech's mobility, because it's always underrated. But even before this came out, I have had games where I used the Big Mech. And a Warboss jumping out of a Battlewagon, able to run through enemy screens and such, and it does catch enemy off guard, and has won me some very interesting games. So it is something that I should take into consideration to show some people how to do. So thank you much for that. And also anything else, and shout out to all the channel members, whoa, and all the support we just got right now in the video. So thank you for that, and kind of filling out this video with the questions in case I missed anything. Let's see if there's anything else in chat that I mean. Shout out to you channel members to get that I'm seeing out here. Like Murder, Flynn, Arcane. Shout out to you guys. Jank. I wanted, yeah, and I'm excited for what's going on with Ghaz. You guys know I'm a channel member with Ghaz. Dog Pound General, Arcane. So yeah, we're gonna have a good time, Gits. All right. So with that being said, I think orcs should look forward to the future, take advantage of your gits and your mandos, but remember, everything falls back to the prophet of the wall. Welcome to the rise of the great wall. But there's one thing to keep in mind is don't cross our wall, because we'll knock your teeth out. Whoa.